Hey everybody, this is Car Ray Rob.
I'm Ray.
I'm Rob, and tonight it is the moment we have been waiting for months. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Finally here.
Yes!
All right, Rob, we're not going to go too in-depth here with our before part.
No reason to.
Yeah, we've got a couple of videos that you guys can check out already. I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
You're excited for it.
There's not really much we can say. I think we just need to get out of here and
Check it out.
See where we're at.
Let's go.
Let's go right now. Okay,
We're back.
we're back. And I know you're all holding your breath to find out what we think about this movie. So let's recap a little bit of this what this movie is about. The Guardians, they are hired by the Sovereign to guard these
Some batteries.
like these batteries, very valuable batteries, and
Sure.
until Rocket decides to steal some, find the Sovereign on their tail, and are ultimately saved by Ego,
The Living Planet.
the living planet, who reveals that he is Peter's father. Mm-hmm. And they spend some time on Ego's planet, on Ego, however you want to...
On his head, I guess.
however you want to look at it. And it just kind of,
Snowballs from there.
Snowballs from there. I don't want to go too much more, but
Yeah.
yeah. All right, Way. So, we talked a lot about expectation,
Yeah.
leading up to it, sophomore slump, that type of thing. Where do you stand on that now that you've actually seen it?
Even when you go into a movie knowing you probably have unfair expectations, you still have them. So they're still going to affect the way you watch the movie. You've got to take that all into account and just try to sometimes just block it out and enjoy did you enjoy the movie? And I would say I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I thought it was really good, really fun from start to finish. Not flawless by any stretch, and I think that's okay. It's hard not to try to rank it to the first one. My gut would tell me it's a little. I would rank it a little bit lower than the first one right now, considering the strong expectations I had going in. I think a lot of them held up. What about you?
You're right about expectation. A lot of people put a lot of focus on external hype. So, reviews, TV spots, all of that type of stuff, product placement.
Like the
Underestimate. I'm more talking about the DQ ads I've been seeing for weeks about the Guardians Blizzard that they have.
God, that looks good.
It does look good.
DQ, you gotta go.
They just disregard the internal hype a lot of the time that you put on the movie. So, we ourselves, I know, have put on a ton of hype on this movie, a ton of pressure. From our previous videos, that, we've been super excited about this movie. Both of us expected this to be our favorite movie of May. But, for me, I solidly do not think this is as good as the first one. Mm-hmm. I did enjoy it. I totally enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You're right, not flawless by any stretch. We'll go into a little bit of that. But I feel like, as far as my expectations, did it fully meet my expectations? No. But the truth is, was it ever going to?
Could it? All right, so me and Rob want to delve in a little bit into why we, kind of rank the movie where we do. So we are going to, give some mild spoilers.
A little spoilery, but not too much.
Yeah, we're going to try and hold hold back the best we can, but we are warning you there are potential spoilers ahead.
Yeah.
All right, Rob. So let's get into the Guardians a little bit. I mean, they're the heart and soul of the movie, and.
Sure.
Kind of the new Guardian a little bit is Baby Groot.
Yeah.
You haven't seen it. Actually, for those of you who didn't see him in any advertising, Groot's a baby in this movie.
And he's adorable.
Yeah. Actually, the opening credit scene dances the line of gratuitous cuteness overload, I guess.
Right.
But it really worked.
Yeah.
It was almost what I was afraid they were going to do with him, but the way they did in the opening credit scene almost got it out of the way. I thought was kind of brilliant.
Yeah, no, I agree. We had talked about the worry that people had about, they're just going to have Baby Groot so he can be adorable and make toys. But we said they've made toys already. But I agree. The opening credit scene, when it first started, I was kind of like, man, it's cool, but like you said, it was kind of that cute overload.
Yeah.
But you're right, in this big kind of battle going in the background, but yet the whole time you're focusing on Baby Groot dancing around to this song, you're kind of like, this really works, actually.
For
This
an
is
opening
super
credit
cool.
It's an opening credit scene, so get the cuteness thing out of the way.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they overdid it too much from that point.
They almost poked fun at that a lot of the movie about how adorable he is.
Right.
Kinda, instead
the
of
Ravagers were couldn't be mean to him. Well, couldn't kill him or anything because he was too cute and stuff. The other character I was kind of worried about going through through the trailers was Drax.
Yeah.
You kind of see a little bit of, I guess you could call it an evolution of his character where he gets jokes now.
Yeah.
And you've seen that in the commercials where he can he's
overreacting to jokes. Ha 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 ha.
Which, like, I get it. Like, all right, maybe, you've just figured out jokes. So, you will overreact to, like, one. And I was hoping it would be, like, the one they showed in the commercials would be, like, the one time in the movie. And no, there's probably a little more than that.
Yeah, they kind of overplayed him a little bit. I think they took his shtick a little far.
I like old Drax. We had some scenes in this movie where he was like old Drax, where he was just the ultra serious. He said things that didn't really make a ton, like, seem like they make a ton of sense. But to me, that's when Drax was funny. And I saw some people say that that's when he wasn't funny, and those jokes are lame. But to me, it was the opposite. I thought that's when he was funny. He's the character I'm probably most disappointed with. In the comics, I think he has such a great storyline because he's a guy who just hates Thanos, and his whole family was murdered, which they hint at it sometimes. And
he talks about it, but they don't really delve too much into it. It's like they use it for like a catalyst for like a scene. So like in this movie with the pools, when he's sitting on the steps talking to Mantis, and it's all about his daughter right there. But then that's kind of it. And it's like, okay, that's
and Mantis like touches him, and she immediately starts crying because you can see he must be feeling so much pain.
Yeah.
And but they never do anything with that. So I'm hoping they're just laying footwork to do something with that in the third one. They really need to, because he's just such a flat character right now. He's just a comic relief character, and he can be so much more. He's got so much, he has depth to him. And
sure. But they did try to, I refrain to use the word humanize, but give him depth by really introducing the Mantis character.
Yeah.
And obviously her connection to Ego, she has some really plot points that she handles for him, but really I feel like her main purpose was to kind of give Drax even just the slightest amount of arc, because if you can say he had an arc, it was at that last line where he's like, and you're beautiful too on the inside,
right?
Like that was really the completion of what little arc he did have in this movie,
which I thought was his funniest line in the movie, and it was his most deadpan probably. Gamora and Nebula, sisters.
I thought that evolution was really cool. Going from the first movie where they obviously started out kind of on the same team, and then Gamora becomes a Guardian, and then Nebula is still fighting against her. And I mean, she still is for this movie for the most part, but you kind of start seeing that shift.
Yeah.
And I think it really adds a lot of depth to them, their backstory with Thanos, which I think is going to be really important when we get to Infinity War.
Right.
That was actually one of the things I was really happy about in this movie.
Yeah, because in the comics, Nebula is the one that takes the glove off of Thanos when he finally has it. Of all these 60 characters in this movie, do they have the balls to have Nebula be the one that kind of defeats him? Right. Would they actually use that character to do that? When you have Iron Man, you have Tony Stark, you have you have Chris Evans.
I think it would be a great idea, actually. Like the Avengers, they don't really know who Thanos is.
Yeah.
So by Infinity War, it's like he's going to be kind of like a new villain for most of them.
Right.
They have no real backstory with him whatsoever that they are aware of.
Yeah. And you really got to see why Nebula hates Gamora.
Yeah.
And it is something that you learn as an audience as Gamora learns it, because it was almost like the first time Gamora had really heard, and she, as soon as Nebula said why she hates her, Gamora understood and almost agreed. She's like, oh wow, you should hate me.
Yeah.
From that point of view.
Right. Her connection with Peter, I think is really interesting, because they obviously talk about the unspoken thing between them,
which kind of was a joke more in the first movie. Now it's turning it's a little bit more serious,
right? And I think it's I think it's actually smart the way they're doing it. They're sort of using the very referential things. He talks about Sam and Diane from Cheers and all of that.
She does not know.
Yeah, she doesn't get it, but she, but it's still true. A lot of times when you have these two characters that you want so badly to be together, and then when they finally get together, it just destroys it. So I feel like they're being really smart about kind of tiptoeing around it a little bit, and I think that's going to play really well.
Because they don't kiss in this movie at all. I think they hug at the end, but they kind of admit to each other that they have feelings, which is obvious. But I don't think they actually, they still have kept. This really has not been love story movies yet. They have not let a love story creep into these two movies.
Right.
And then Rocket's Rocket.
Right.
I thought he maybe was cranked up a little bit too much sometimes.
It's his depth that sometimes felt a little forced, you know, because they really try to, you know, connect him with Yondu at one point, which worked, but there were still parts of that you're, you know, especially in the earlier parts of the movie where you could obviously see that there was this, you know, jealousy type thing, you know, especially with Peter, and, you know, that type of thing.
But I think as, you know, overall the Guardians, I think everybody kind of had a role. Except Drax, really. I mean, it's not a role. I'd say an arc. You know, I feel like they all had an arc, which is good. It's hard to do that with like we said, with this many characters in a movie. So I was glad to see that every character kind of got their spotlight a little bit.
Sure. Well, and Peter, you know, I mean, he obviously had a lot going on in this movie. You know, with ego and, you know, that whole thing.
He's connected to everybody. I mean, he is the central character of the movie. There's no mistake about it.
For sure. And, you know, as we mentioned, you know, his relationship with Gamora, but then, you know, and I just kind of mentioned his relationship with Rocket. You know, there's a lot of familial issues throughout everybody's storylines in this movie.
Sure.
And I think Peter's the one that really connects, like you said, to everybody. And that elevates him to a certain level.
Yeah.
Because he's the one who has to
gives him some
deal
responsibility
with all this.
that he's not, you know, probably not used to having.
Yeah, and that's going to force him, I think, to grow even more in the third movie than it did in this movie.
Yeah, daddy figure. All right, Robin, and one of the, I guess, new Guardians, who I don't know if you would say maybe stole the show or at least the final act was, I thought, Yondu.
Yeah,
his arc was really solid.
Yeah, they really elevated his character from the first movie. They really kind of pushed him into the forefront, which was smart because I think a lot of people really connected with him in the first movie, and they wanted more of him.
Yeah,
so I think it was
we got it.
Yeah, I think, and we got it, and not in like a forced way. I think it worked really well.
It helped because, you know, when they split up the groups, it kind of helped that he kind of is that guy. He could connect with Rocket, still had his attachments with Peter. A lot of opportunity to build up his character, which I think they successfully did. It's kind of interesting because they also show a lot of his relationship with other Ravagers. I thought the Ravagers were just him.
Right.
Apparently now there's
multiple,
hundreds of cells of these thieves.
Which is cool. I mean, I think that was actually a really nice little addition, you know, because I think that adds a lot of depth to Yondu because there's a lot of tradition, a lot of connection that he has to a culture that we didn't even really understand in the first movie. Like you said, they were just Ravagers to us. They were just a gang on a ship. This, you know, there's like a society.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
You know, then we got to meet some of the other Ravagers, and they found that opportunity to throw out some cameos.
Right.
Sly Stallone runs one.
Right.
You know, at the beginning of Sly's scene, you don't really even know what they're talking about. Like the other Ravagers just really had this disdain for Yondu, and they don't really explain why till later in the movie. So it kind of comes off weird, but, you know, they kind of wrap it all up, I guess, in the end credit scene.
I think Michael Rooker really brought a lot to the table this time, and
his powers are really cool.
Yeah, you find out a little bit more about it because I'm not gonna lie, like I really did not understand that the fin was why he was able to control the arrow. Like they never really explained that in the first movie. So I guess like getting that little snippet in this and like him kind of upgrading the fin, I thought was actually
makes it better.
Yeah, for me it actually makes it a lot better because now I more understand him and how he works.
Yeah, I don't think it's like that in the comics, but I think a lot of people were complaining in the first movie that his fin was so small because in the comics his fin is so big. So they were trying to think of a reason why he would go bigger, and that was the reason they gave. And it works.
But it works. Yeah, for me. Yeah, totally. Okay, I'm gonna take a moment to get really excited because I get to talk about Kurt Russell. It was amazing. He's amazing. I don't know what it is about that man, but he is so charismatic in all the right ways. I don't care how old he is. I don't care if it's the 80s, if it's the 90s, if it's 2000. I don't care when it is. Kurt Russell is the man.
Well, he kind of plays Kurt Russell from the 80s in this movie.
He really does in a really cool way, which,
you know, he is really central to, like, Peter's character more than just being his father because he's central, I think, to, like, how the group dynamic works for the Guardians. It's like Peter thinks he's found this new family or his first real family in a long, long time, and then he actually meets his real family, his real family, and he kind of gets pulled on, you know, which family is he to side with.
His torment about his father is real, you know. From the first movie, that was a really big theme, you know, not knowing who his father was. I mean, how they opened the movie, obviously. And, so this whole thing with Ego, it makes total sense that he would automatically connect to this guy, not just for the fact that it's Kurt Russell, but that the fact that, he wants this father figure. And he talks about how, he used to tell everybody that David Hasselhoff was his dad, you know, in the movie. That's like kind of the running thing, is that he used to tell all the kids when he was young that David Hasselhoff was his dad. And it's funny because on Earth, David Hasselhoff is just an actor and a singer. Ego, he's a freaking planet, like he's a god. And so for him it's like, hey, this is quite better. It's like god. Literally winning the lottery, the genetic lottery, as he finds out as well.
But all good things don't last.
Yeah, they don't last, not in Star-Lord world.
The breaking point of that relationship, I thought, was one of the best parts of the movie for me.
I mean, there's a clear point in the movie where Ego and Peter break, that their relationship is fractured, will not repair, and Peter has such a visceral reaction that just takes you by surprise.
Out of characterly in a good way.
Yeah. They just go for it, and that's cool. I really commend them for that. The falling out with Ego, it really forces Peter to kind of reevaluate all of his relationships, and a big one is Yondu.
I think a lot of the Guardians kind of learn that sometimes the thing you're looking for the most is right in front of you and you ignored it.
It's awesome because obviously Yondu kind of goes through this exile of his own, from the Ravagers, from his own crew, and you kind of see that in this movie. And for him to kind of reconnect with Peter, considering that on both counts, it's actually Peter's the catalyst for both of those exiles.
Right.
But for him, I think in the end, he would actually say it's worth it because of the relationship he has with Peter. Yeah,
Yondu gets so broken down in the movie that he can actually finally admit that he cared for Peter and was protecting him, and then we learn through Ego's story that Yondu was protecting Peter,
right?
And then which ties into once Yondu figured out some things that he was doing for Ego in the past, and that's why he ended up saving Peter. That's, kind of explains why he didn't take him. Why he didn't take Peter to Ego. So kind of wrapped up a lot of things in a tight little package that I thought really worked and kind of hit, and then set up the rest of the ending of the movie, which was pretty cool.
One of the things that really didn't work in this movie for me was the Sovereign. I felt like in a lot of ways they were kind of a wasted villain, especially when Ego kind of started taking center stage. I felt like they were kind of forgotten.
I think it's kind of like a formulaic thing you see in a lot of these types of movies. I mean, to me, they're like the same purpose you see from like the Crossbones character in Civil War, right? Okay. Like he just kind of sets the story in motion early. He died like right there in that opening couple scenes in the movie. They and I think that's their deal here. Like they just kind of set the Guardians going in a direction. I'd almost would have been happier if they just ended them there. Bringing them back in at the end, I thought was what really kind of made them feel like, what are you doing here? Go away. We're done with you.
Yeah.
In the long term, because of their extra credit scene, and James Gunn has reported that they're going to bring in the Adam Warlock character, and you want to get to an Adam Warlock character. That's his people. Find a way to sneak him in an earlier movie. I think long term it could end up making more sense than it feels like it fits in this time.
If they are going to have that kind of impact on the future, I wish they had kind of made them the villain of the movie. You know what I mean? Like, really focus on them, their motivations, of their society. Like, you feel like you kind of get it. They're superficial. They create perfection, like that type of thing. I mean, they're gold. I mean, I felt like I wanted more from them, and they just seemed, even, like you said, coming back at the end, like they were actually like a big part of this movie when they weren't.
Right, they just were there to keep them busy, really.
Yeah, it really fell flat for me.
What I would have actually liked to have seen, because I'm one of my favorite Cosmic Universe characters is the character of Nova, and in the first Guardians they introduced the Nova Corps.
Yeah.
And I could really have just seen the role that the Sovereign played. You could have almost done with like the Nova Corps, and it kind of would flip the dynamic of them working together in the first movie and then working not together in the second movie.
I like that a lot. Yeah, I think that would have been a really smart move.
It wasn't like distractingly bad to me, just because, like I said, I just think of them, they were a plot device, and somebody had to be that plot device early. I just wish they didn't bring them back at the end.
Yeah.
Now, kind of talk about the characters. I want to just think about the plot, the tone, the comedy. How did it all kind of work as a package?
Sure.
And I will say, I think first and foremost, this is an action comedy, space sci-fi movie. So I think plot is, this isn't like Civil War. It's not like The Winter Soldier. It's a lot more linear than that. But it still has to work and make it enjoyable and make sure that it's a great device to push the characters forward. How did you think the movie kind of worked in that way?
I do think in certain ways they still kind of fell into that sophomore slump trap a little bit, simply because I feel like in some ways they try to do too much. We brought up the Sovereign and how maybe it should have just been the Nova Corps as opposed to like, something like that, as opposed to like bringing in these supposedly kind of heavy hitter villains that don't end up kind of doing much. And this kind of pains me to say. They shouldn't have done Ego in this movie. I think they should have actually saved Ego for the third movie. That should have been like the family-centric movie, I think should have been the third movie. Follow me. So the first movie, there's a big ramp up. That by the end of the movie, they're obviously on this front, right? Yeah, they're coming together. By the end of the movie, they've come together. Well, then we start the second movie. Well, they're not really kind of still together, and it's kind of and then they have to go through this whole thing with Ego, and then they come together at the end, and they're family. I feel like what they really should have done is they should have taken that ramp up from the first movie. They should have just kind of kept it up, and then really dropped him down at the end of the second movie. And then the third movie was the really
back in.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I hate to go back to the Star Wars trilogy formula, but it works. And I think the third movie should have been the family movie, the coming together movie, the sticking together movie. And I do feel like in some ways, rushing us to know who Peter's dad is, I felt like they could have stretched that out a little bit, given Peter a little bit more depth, and I think the movie would have worked a little bit more for me if they hadn't have tried to do the Sovereign and Ego.
I think the way the first movie ended, so much about, the last line had to do with Peter's dad being a dick or something, and I just feel like if you didn't introduce Peter's dad at that point, especially after they went into his blood and said, oh, you're part something weird, it would have been it'd been too much of a slow burn. It'd been annoying if we didn't find out who his dad was in the second movie. I think you'd have to totally change the ending of the first movie, I think, to not show his dad in this movie. I think relationships, when you're first building them, are kind of like this sometimes. So they had these big events in the first movie that put them together. Then you're together and you're like, oh, well, I don't think I like this guy as much as I thought I did. He's a little bit more annoying than I thought I did. It's hard, I think, to judge what they should do in the third movie, I think, until we know what they do in the third movie, kind of thing. Because I can see, came together as a family, stuck together as a family, now work together as a family. Could be like the trilogy type thing that maybe they're saying. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying.
I don't necessarily think that they would have had to change the ending of the first one to not show Ego in the second movie. And really, I kind of thought that Ego wasn't going to necessarily be a huge character in the second movie. It was wrong. He ended up being a huge character in the second movie. But even if they had maybe introduced him in the third act, like at the end of the movie, to set up the third movie, you know what I mean? Even if they had done that, still focused on the one villain, really fleshed out that villain, and...
Well, I don't think they didn't focus on him. I mean, we said they didn't focus on the Sovereign.
Right. But no, I did. I agree. But actually I said, but you left somebody in the dust when you're kind of making them, even with the end credit scene, you make them seem like they're kind of a big deal. But by the end of the movie, you're like, well, I don't really seem like a big deal to me.
Right. You know what? Some things that I like about this movie, and even, in some of those same ways, is I feel like James Gunn has the balls to be weird and do something that's weird. Like, right in the middle of the big battle scene between Peter and his dad, and, Ego gets this huge picture of himself, and Peter turns himself into Pac-Man.
As weird as it is, it so makes sense because that's the whole thing. I mean, the man's name is Ego, so everything it's framed after himself. Peter's whole life is these, pop culture references, the music, the video games, the movies. Yeah, I mean, he uses them as his biblical stories. Gamora and the Footloose story. It's so indicative of the Peter Star-Lord character
and funny at the same time. But like we said, so the movie's not flawless, but it's fun.
Yeah,
I'll take fun.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah.
Like, even with my issues that I have with the plot and like what I think really could have made the movie, a lot better, I still had a ton of fun. And I expected to walking in, and I'm glad they delivered, because I do hate when you go into that sophomore movie and they do try to crank up everything, and you basically ruin everything that was fun by trying to, force the fun.
Right. So. Let it be natural. Let the characters progress. Just let the characters be themselves, and it's going to be fun.
Agreed.
And I think they hit on more than they missed.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the goal.
Yeah.
When you're telling jokes, that's the goal.
That's the goal.
Get more laughs and booze. All right, everybody, that's it for me and Rob. But we want to hear from you guys in the comments below. What'd you think about the movie? What'd you think about how they used ego?
Also hit the like and subscribe button to catch all of our upcoming videos.
Till then, this is Car Ray Rob, where I'm Ray.
I'm Rob.
And Rob, how come I can understand you? Are you using some kind of neuro-language router?
Actually, I'm speaking English, you fucking idiot.